Well, my name is Asif Rahmani. I see a few of you from before, from the session that I did a couple of days ago, so thank you very much for coming back. And the remaining, if you have never heard me before, can you tell me why you're here? I'm serious. Can you tell me why? What's the reason? Any specific things?
Keep out of the rain.
Keep out of the rain, but it's not raining outside. And I ask these questions because I want the expectation to be correct coming into the session. I always tell people, that this is such a soft kind of area. It's not like I'm going to show you code. I'm going to show you specific workflows and things like that, which I did kind of do in the last session where I was talking about a lot of workflows and forms and access apps. Here, we're talking about SharePoint adoption. We're talking about SharePoint end user support. We're talking about how to empower the executives and the help desk, and really how to make things successful. Is this okay? You guys are okay with that? Okay, great. Well, I have some stories to share with you guys. Hopefully, those will be valuable to you. I was just telling somebody, Mark Anderson, one of my colleagues, that I made the journey of coming from the networking background to development, hardcore, starting with VB4, all the way to .NET and everything else in SharePoint 2003, believe it or not, made a whole curriculum for that. Then I still do no-code solutions, quite a bit of them, SharePoint Designer, InfoPath, Access, Web Apps, and a bunch of other no-code solutions, Report Builder, Dashboard Designer, things like that. And then I talk about this. And the reason I talk about this is I'm pretty passionate about the solutions getting used instead of sitting on the shelf. Unfortunately, they do sit on the shelf quite a bit. Some of my solutions also, unfortunately, have sat on the shelf, and I really, really dislike that. I hope it's not happening to you, but if it is happening, I'll hopefully share some things with you that will make it unhappen, and you can actually get things be used. If I asked you guys, how many of you feel that you have achieved true SharePoint adoption and usage in your organization? Can anybody raise their hand saying, yes, we did it? Because I would love to give you $5,000 afterwards and pick your brain about what you did. Because I haven't met a single person who can confidently say, yes, we did it. It's all perfectly working fine, 100% usage. No? Dang it. All right, well, missed opportunity. I was serious about it. I'm sorry?
We have SharePoint implemented as inside.
Okay, on-prem, yeah.
But, so we have even structured business process. So we have person who is doing all the information governance, etc.
Sure.
But so I'm BA, I'm business.
You're a business analyst, yeah.
And I can't say that she knows what she's doing. They have, some kind of strategy. So
Right.
that's why.
You're looking for the silver bullet, right?
Yes.
The magic pill.
Not
All
magic
right.
pill, but probably some kind of tips how
Sure.
to improve.
Well, that I can give you a lot. I've been in the whole SharePoint industry since 2002. Along the way, and actually that's my introduction, I'll talk about it in just a minute. Let me pause for that. Our agenda today, just so you know the expectations properly as well, is I will talk about myself and our company, what we do, a couple of minutes. After that, I'll jump into talking about why we should care about adoption, what is that thing that's all fuzzy usually, right, and why we should care overall. Then end user support challenges. I think empathy is undervalued. We need to understand really what end user challenges are truly. We have seen a lot of them over the years. And then strategies to come over those challenges. So that's our agenda, all right? And I will be giving you some things that have worked and some failures that have completely fallen on their face. I'll try to give you both. And then you can decide what makes sense for you. So here I am, just a little snapshot. I've been doing training, speaking, writing, all sorts of things within SharePoint since 2002. Started with SharePoint 2001. Wrote a few books, been fortunate enough to got the chance to do that, mostly on SharePoint Designer, InfoPath, and then also the latest one was First Look for Power Users in SharePoint 2013. But honestly, this is what I enjoy the most, to really talk to people, understand what they're going through, and then try to mentor and help them, or learn from them, vice versa. As far as our company is concerned, I'll talk about this just a little bit as well. We do two main things. One is our Visual SP help system, and second is our training center. The help system is mainly for end users, but others can benefit from it, I believe, as well, where there's a help tab that comes up in the SharePoint environment, and it follows user around wherever they go. That help tab serves all kinds of help content, tutorials, screenshots, documents, reference documents, or even link to other resources that our administrators wanted to give to their users. So we came out with this about 3 years ago now, and it's been doing pretty well, at least in the US where I'm from, a lot of traction over there. Completely administered by SharePoint administrators as well, so you can change all that stuff and put your own content in, everything customizable. That's the first thing to do. And second thing, myself included, many of these people that you see in the conference, a lot of us have developed content, all kinds of content over the years. Branding, workflows, infopad, records management, search, etc. And all that content, all those videos specifically are on the visualsp.com site. Also used to be known as SharePointvideos.com. I don't know if anybody heard of that before. Heard of it? A few nods? Okay. So that's our new name, visualsp.com. Anyway, so that's what we do. Oh yeah, before I forget, I like to do giveaways for my session as well at the end, And I have one giveaway today, and that's 1 year access to our site, which is usually worth $200. If I can find my bag, which I can right here. What I do is I do a raffle at the end. So in case you're interested in winning this thing, winning the raffle, put your card, or if you don't have a card, a piece of paper, your name and email address, and I'll pick it at the end. Yeah? Optional completely, of course, if you would like to join. You need paper. I have a pen. I don't have paper right now, sorry. All right. Moving onwards. Here's my first question to you guys. What can SharePoint do for you? That what's in it for me applies to everybody, I believe, in SharePoint. And you guys are here because you care. You have some sort of role within the organization. Many of you are probably communication specialists or portal managers or the SharePoint guy or the SharePoint gal, right? If you don't fit into any other category, and you want to make things successful for your users. So what can SharePoint do for you? Well, here's what it can do for you. It can make you look like a superhero, progress your career, as I'm sure some of you know. Hopefully it's done that for you. Help you get a job in any industry vertical that you choose, right? Look like this guy, awesome, or girl. Or vice versa, the other side of the coin is it can make you look completely foolish, get you fired, happened already. Not me, but I've seen it happen. And it can make you change your career and go to a different industry altogether. You're such a bad name in the industry, like, oh, this guy, every time he goes, or this girl, it just messes up everything. You just want to shoot this thing. You're like, oh, I'm so sick of this SharePoint thing. Well, you know what? We feel like that many times because it's frustrating. There's lots of good stuff, but there's lots of frustrating stuff as well in SharePoint. We have to understand that that's how users feel as well. That frustration is there. So I want to tell you a quick story about technology adoption, SharePoint adoption in this case. It's a story of a beautiful looking intranet. This is a SharePoint 2003 intranet, believe it or not. It was beautiful, but a beautiful looking intranet that did not help its users. Okay, so here's what happened. University, I don't want to say the exact university because it's also being recorded and stuff, but it's a university in the United States that we did consulting for a long time ago. We built the portal, looked beautiful. Honestly, it looked really nice, especially for SharePoint 2003 standards. So it was in 2004, 2005, something like that. Anyway, turned it on. 2 months later, we looked at the search of what people are searching for. Are they finding what they're looking for or not? The top thing people were looking for, students, faculty, whatever, they were not finding. Top thing. And the second thing was like way below, in terms of the actual search terms. So we knew that this thing they'd be searching for, they're not finding it on SharePoint, they're going to the old way of doing it. Hurts adoption, right? My question to you, what do you think that thing was? What was that thing that they were searching for? It's a university, so you know the context. I'll give you this. They were not looking for a curriculum. They were not looking for a schedule of classes.
Payslips.
What was that again? Payslips?
Online payslips.
That's a good... yes, who said that? Did you read my post or something? How did you know that?
Well, it's been said before.
Ah, so you've attended something that I've done before. Oh no, but
It's not uncommon for that.
from your own experience, really? Cafeteria menu. That's exactly what it was. #1 search. No, we didn't think about it. Neither did the university when we're coming up with all these things about, oh, we need to get this there, this there, this there. Nobody thought about the cafeteria menu. You know who cared? The people who were using it. And you know what they did not get? The cafeteria menu. And you know what they did afterwards? They went to the old place. The old intranet, which was still alive, which is a bad idea, but it was, and they got the information there. So please don't make that mistake. Anyway, so why is adoption of technology so important? This is, of course, a redundant statement almost. But think about this. This "we built it, but not many came" is a true statement, especially in our industry. Many, many, many organizations see that. And I got an example for you, an analogy for you on that. Have you ever seen this airplane fly in the skies? It actually does, but we don't see it because what I've heard is it's more for transport of helicopters and tanks and stuff like that. It's a beluga airplane, double, like a quadruple decker, whatever it is, okay? But I've not seen it carry passengers, although I've seen this picture many, many times, and it has these passenger seating in there. So, and then I'm not sure how accurate this is, but this is what I saw for the interior of this thing. Lots of luxury seating and amenities, and there's so many awesome things like that on the web about this beluga airplane. You know what's missing? People, okay? So obviously a beautiful airplane is not enough. A beautiful SharePoint intranet is not enough. You got to have customers. You got to have the usage. Here's some statistic that we should all know about, and I'll prove this out a little bit later as well. This is from Harvard Business School Publishing. Hopefully you can see that in the back. Let me see this. A new product has to offer 9 times improvement over the existing solution in order for it to be easily adopted. Okay, so we're saying almost 10 times as much better than what we had before. And I'll give you some examples of that too, non-SharePoint examples of what has happened in the industry. That's kind of hard to achieve, isn't it? 9 times? Wow. So the old intranet to the new intranet, or the existing SharePoint 2007 or 2010, whatever you guys are running, to that one, 10 times for it to be easily adopted, for people to really like going there. So let me take a poll before I go on. How many of you guys are running SharePoint 2013 already? Okay, or Office 365, how about that? A few of you. How about SharePoint 2010? Expected that. 2007? 1, okay. Earlier version? Pen and paper?
WSS 3.
Yeah, okay. WSS 3, huh? Happens. I know of actually multiple environments, so don't feel bad, multiple environments in the US at least, that they're running SharePoint 2003 and 7 and 10 and SharePoint 2013, and they're supporting all of it in multiple farms. It's a nightmare. Oh my God. Anyway, but it's happening. So thank you for that information. I appreciate it. I know what my audience is. Mostly SharePoint 2013 and 2010, it seems like, or Office 365. Now the question that I want to ask to you guys, what do you think? Is SharePoint up for the job? Can SharePoint really get there where it could be adapted, it could look beautiful, and it could be functional as well? Do you know of examples that has happened already? Yeah? That's good. So you have hope. I like that. Without hope, we should, just better yet give up. So I'll give you some hope as well. Here's some statistics on that. What can SharePoint do? Let's talk about that, then we'll talk about the actual examples of other companies and organizations who have done a good job. So you can do all that good stuff, right? Collaboration, document management, social network. There's so many different things it could do. For those folks who were in my session last 2 days ago, you can't say anything when I do this, all right? There's a super secret about the next version of SharePoint that I've been sharing in my sessions only. All right, it's NDA, so you can't talk about it outside of these doors. Yes? If I get a yes, I'll tell you. Okay, so in SharePoint 2016, under NDA, SharePoint will make coffee as well. It's coming. Anyway, I say that because everything else that you can think about on the internet, intranet, extranet level, it can do everything. Now, I'm not saying it can do everything really well. I'm saying it could do everything. Doesn't mean you have to use it for everything, but it can. So there's almost nothing remaining. It's going to hopefully become better and better in different things. But just because it can doesn't mean you use it for everything. So the companies, the organizations who have done a really good job with intranet designs and they have shared it, there's if you have my slide deck, you'll see, it's very small here, but there's a link to exactly what I'm about to show you, the different intranets. Here's one called Kiwi Bank. This is called BenNet. The intranet, that's what this intranet is called. This one is called ComNet. Okay, that was it. So 4 of these at least. You know what's missing in all these intranets? The word SharePoint. Yeah, many actually people that I meet, they don't even, like end users, real end users, many of them don't even realize that they're using SharePoint. Especially if they like the product, they usually say, oh yeah, our intranet is good, and they never mention the word SharePoint. It's actually a good thing many times, okay? Because sometimes they do a search for it and they find all the negative stuff out there about SharePoint. So many of these, all these companies and others that I've worked with also, they've decided to make their own name for the intranet, whatever it is, and not use the word SharePoint. And it's actually been a good idea for the most part. Of course, you can say that this is running the SharePoint technology or the SharePoint platform, but your intranet is your intranet. So I worked with, for example, Sony Corporation, Visa Corporation, some of the brands that you guys know about. I'm trying to mention that, like John Deere, that kind of stuff. And all of them do the same exact thing. None of them are called SharePoint as the intranet. Best rated intranets of 2013. Fact is 70% of 2013 top 10 winners as given by Nielsen Norman Group. Top 10 winners were, 70% of top 10 winners were using SharePoint. Say again? That would be 7 of 10. You're right. 7 of top 10. 70% sounds so much bigger, right? But even if you go down, if you look at the top 50, there's many, many, many more outside. But it just sounds more appealing. But you're right. So there's hope. SharePoint is up for the job, right? SharePoint can do what we want it to do. So now, how do we get there? Let's talk about this typical end user that we need to understand, I feel. Who is an end user? There's an encyclopedia out there on the web, not a Wikipedia, but webopedia. And this is how it describes a typical end user of a software, ultimate user of a computer, okay? For a product that's been fully developed and marketed, users who require a bug-free and finished product. The term end user usually implies an individual with a relatively low level of computer expertise. So I read this first, I'm like, oh, forget it. SharePoint can't do all that stuff. Bug-free. But this is our end user. This is what the expectations are, okay? Knowing this is a good idea. Really, really understanding it, not just knowing, yeah, end user. So the current SharePoint end user support and software adoption challenges, here's what many of them have said. They ask the same question. I'm sorry, this is from a support person point of view. Sorry about that. The support person, and I've heard this so many times, they say users ask the same questions again and again and again. It's the same exact thing again and again that I'm answering to different people. I don't have enough hours in a day for me to do my real job and support these users. I was just talking to somebody and they mentioned the same exact thing that I've heard many times, and it was at this conference saying, yeah, so they have me making all these tutorials and all this document for supporting users. So I need to make all that collateral. And I need to support users when they're calling or when they're emailing. And I have to support the SharePoint environment and develop solutions on top of it. Oh, by the way, that's only 40% of my job according to my outline of what I do. Like, whoa, okay, so how's that working out? So that kind of person, of course, is, I don't want to say this, but is going to quit sooner or later. This is unrealistic expectations from a support person to do all these things. Yeah, so SharePoint is one of the many systems I support. I hear that from a lot of people too. And this, the most important thing, people keep going back to the old ways of doing things and not using and adopting our awesome intranet the right way, the way we have intended it to be adopted. Yeah, we made all this thing, nobody came, they're still going to the old thing. But there's a reason for that. This is maybe not a good question because I'm not familiar with the UK market as much, but do you guys know what Craigslist is? Yes. So this Craigslist, okay, I'm sorry. That's why I didn't know if it was used quite a bit here. Sorry again? So Craigslist is a very, very simple looking site, right? That has got an amazing adoption in the worldwide. And people wonder why, it's just links and text, there's no images and all. It runs super fast. And I can do so many different kind of ads and stuff, and I can put up my things that I want to sell or services that I want to get, whatever kind of stuff. And it's been so successful, and people wonder how. It has nothing. Since the beginning, it has no real features in that way, and it's still super successful. And then you look at like the beautiful intranet that I talked about, that we did, and got poor adoption. Two extreme things, right? Why? Well, that is where you have to understand the user psyche as to what are they looking for, not what you want them to look for. So the end user point of view. Well, I like the way we're currently doing things. Why change it? Heard that before? I don't want to learn new technology software. I get that especially from people who are closer to retirement or people who are just set in their ways quite a bit. Really nice people, but they have this view quite a bit, especially when we train. So what they're really saying truly is, what's in it for me? Right? If there's nothing in it for me, then you're telling me to do this, why should I do it? Do you remember this thing? You do? Some of you do? Okay. How many, actually no, I want to take a vote. How many people know what this is? 10, 12, okay. Anybody remember the name? Did I put that in there? I didn't put the name in there. What is that? iPack. Compact iPack. So I got this back in 2001. I was so super excited. It was so much money, but I got it. I'm like, oh yes, you know. And anybody has it still? Oh, you do? You're kidding me. But you don't use it, do you? Okay. Yeah, I have that in my garage somewhere too, but I don't know. Now, let's see this. Anybody know this device? Yeah? How many people know this device? Come on, everybody's got to be raising their hand. So if you're not raising your hand, I'm going to assume that you live in this world that we live in together, and you know what this is, an iPhone, right? Why? Why has this adoption been amazing when the same kind of stuff happened with this guy over here?
Bigger marketing budget.
Say again? Bigger marketing budget? You could say that, I guess. But there were many customers already or players in the market with the smartphone idea before iPhone came around, right? And then, of course, everything changed. The Android and Windows Phone, everything else kind of started doing the same swiping, right? Same zooming, same bigger buttons and bigger interfaces. In this thing, I had a stylus that I had to really, really carefully click on that button on the top left to save something. If I missed it, oh crap, I got to do this again.
So it's just the user interface. Is that what you're saying? It's just the user interface?
User interface plays a huge main part of it. Another thing you think about it was there an ecosystem of apps and other things that you could use to extend this functionality? No. In fact, even an iPhone, I don't know if you guys remember Steve Jobs, and they all introduced it. He was really against having outside developers extend the functionality with apps and everything else. But eventually it happened. And that's when everything exploded, because there were just so many different things you could do by just extending it, the phone, right? Keeping that in mind, I have a very quick solution for you. So this is a one-step solution. If you don't like this one step, then I'll tell you the other 5 steps, okay? It's up to you. So I don't know if you can read it, but here it is.
That exact same cartoon is the homepage of my Intranet TV.
No way.
Exact that one, yeah. Exact same one.
Hopefully you guys can see in the back, but what this is saying, well, I don't want to explain it, it's a joke, right? But if your users are defective, just change them. Done, right? That's all you gotta do, change the users. If you cannot do this, if this is not an option, let's talk about the options. So here's other option. How can we create our own magic? What I'm gonna tell you is not a silver bullet, but there's a bunch of different copper bullets, maybe, that we've used successfully for many years now, and you take it for what it's worth to you, okay? Proven strategies from the field, at least for us. Here are the components that we feel do make that magic happen. Get an executive sponsor. I'm sure many of you agree with that. Without executive sponsorship, it won't work. And user training and support. But this is not the simple, straightforward, put people in the room like this and train them. I'm sorry, but that doesn't work. Empowering the help desk. We'll talk more about that. All these things have caveats for things which don't seem very sensical. But until you put them to work, it's like, oh yeah, this actually works. Building no-code solutions and creating no-code developers in-house. You might wonder to yourself, what do you mean? I'll talk to you about what that means. And then also keeping things fresh, which makes sense. So a couple things here might not make sense. A couple of these things you might feel that you know exactly what I mean by it, but I'll throw some curveballs to you as well. We'll go from there. Just want to make sure I have the time. Okay, we have enough time. First, executive sponsorship, right? So I have this person who actually just recently switched jobs, and she was telling me that the team that she was in before, I don't want to say the company name because this is all well-known companies and I feel kind of bad, but their first name begins with a B, second name begins with a B, so B and B, so something. That's all I can say, from US. Anyway, so she switched from that company to a different company. And she was telling me that my first company, I had my people, my team, and all perfectly gung-ho, everything, we knew what to do. I knew what to do, and we made some great strides. Where we hit the ceiling is executive sponsorship. Well, I just could not get my executives on board. She finally switched companies. It just didn't work after, I think she's been there for 6-7 years. Next company now she is at right now, executive sponsorship is there. They get it. They want this thing to work. There are a few examples I'll talk about that they do and others. But the team is not as truly excited as she wants it to be. Okay? But you know what? She's saying, even though people around me will take some time to come along, or maybe we'll replace these people, some of that, I would much rather have this scenario compared to the last scenario. Because that we were just not getting anywhere. We're just at that ceiling. We were just hitting against it. So would not get anywhere. So, having said that, the follow the leader mentality, very, very true. I hope you agree with this as well. The top-down support is a must. Without that, you just will hit the ceiling once, eventually. What I have, it's very small here, sorry about that. It says, otherwise you might as well call it quits right now. Because I've never seen it work without executive sponsorship, never. Employees model the behavior of the leader also. So if the leader is always complaining about this product or the platform and saying, oh, this is not working, guess what's going to happen to your users? So here's some specific examples of executive sponsorship and executive support in action. Public proclamation of the support. Okay? This means in the actual launch, in the actual meeting, in the actual gathering, talking about our intranet. And here's the different things that I see as a vision for where we're going as a company. Not just talking about the technology, but talking about the vision. And this is just a tool that helps us get there. Very important. Second, this is actually a person named Jeff Immelt, CEO of GE Electric. And this person, CEO, has an internal blog actually. I'm pretty sure it's still active, but I don't have privy to their environment anymore. And this is a SharePoint blog. So people are, when they want to hear what the CEO has to say, guess what? Where they have to go? To his blog. Okay, and he's pretty active on that blog with the picture and everything. Okay, well, yeah, I want to hear what he has to say. I want to comment on it. You have to go to SharePoint to hear it. Another strategy, having people executives refuse to accept emails that have too many attachments or large attachments or messages with too many people. Because if the executives, and I'm talking about even the executive directors and above, understand that this can be accomplished better with this platform that we have on our intranet, they'll direct people, you know what, here's what you want to do. You want to put the document there, you want to send me an alert, etc. Instead of doing it this way and having a huge thread with 10 dozen documents or whatever. This also works. Some people say, well, that's just too extreme. It's not going to work. But you know what? So one company got creative and they said, we'll do this thing, but we'll do it one day a week. Okay, so the executives on that particular day, that's how they started. They would refuse to accept emails on Tuesday, specifically which had these parameters. And little by little, they made headway. I can't say that solves all their problems, but they made headway. You got to start somewhere. And also something like this where an executive, especially a CEO, CIO, something answers one submitted question by the people from the company on the main homepage, the front page of the portal. Very, very helpful. It gets people back to where you want them to go. So that's the first thing. And if you have any other ideas on the executive support, I'm all ears. Like I said, I always learn from people as well, not just teach. So right now or later, if you have any comments you want to share with everybody, that's what we're here for collaboration, right? Okay. End user training and support. So I've been a trainer specifically from all different walks of SharePoint users, administrators to begin with, then developers, then power users, and then end users, and now I've done everything. Now I usually focus on power users and end users, but I'll tell you some things that have worked and something that has not worked. And then you take it from there, wherever you feel makes sense. So if you build it, they will come. It's sadly not true for SharePoint. We already know that. You have to support them. You have to train them. And this is a big, big thing, especially for end users. Empathy. In case you're wondering, you didn't go from a SharePoint session to a psychology session. It's still SharePoint, but psychology is so important in this thing. If we don't truly understand, empathize, not sympathize, but empathize with the users, we won't understand it. I think about the first day when I got into SharePoint. So I mentioned 2002, right? That's when I got into it. My first project on SharePoint was SharePoint 2001. There was one big book written by Bill English at that time. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was a blue book that was in the market. That was it. There was nothing else. And no offense to Bill, had good information in there, but not what I needed. So I had to do everything from scratch. I had to develop web parts and make list modifications and all that good stuff back in the day. I hated it so much that I wish I never ever see this product again called SharePoint. Honestly. Those 2 months at that time in 2002 were miserable for me. Well, I'm here. That's 13 years after, right? There, of course, things change quite a bit in the next version and beyond. But if I felt like that, I'm sure you felt like that too. And some days, maybe you still feel like that sometimes. We have to understand what the users feel as well and really empathize with them. So, what's in it for them? Why should they care? Just because I care, just because you care, doesn't mean that they have to care. Understand before being understood. Here's an example. You're looking at, sorry, it's kind of small here as well, but you're looking at this interface. And you're looking at it for the first time, right? You're an end user. You know what this is, right? Document library, right? You're in a document library, you're looking at this thing over here, and you want to put in a document in SharePoint, right? Because you have it in the file share, and now it's in document library. You say, all right, somebody has told me you have to put it there. You know what they're going to do, right? What's that again? Create a folder? Okay, that's possible because we're used to folders and file share. But something a little bit more, because I want to dump it right here. I'm going to click on. Okay, what happens when you click on new document? Does it work? No, it doesn't. You know what that gives you, right? It's like, okay, let's create a new document. But no, I want to make a new document here that I already have here. It's an how do I get existing document? Okay, so that confusion, that thing is always there. Now, of course, they would not be looking at this ribbon. They're probably at browse over here, so they're looking at new document. There's no place where it says upload document, upload multiple documents, or new folder. I hear still from people, and I laugh about it privately, not in their face, when they say, oh yeah, it's a Microsoft product, SharePoint. They'll get it, don't worry. I'm like, all right, good luck. Because it's not. It's just very, very different, as we all know. It's not as intuitive. So, here's a typical user experience. Now, I've heard different versions of it as well, so this is one that I've experienced many times. An example, user sees a document is checked out, right, in a library. How do you know it's checked out? Well, now it's just a green arrow that they have to just understand that it's checked out. Or maybe hopefully you give a column that says checked out and says checked out to whatever. Okay, they know it's checked out. Steps they take, like I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I need to change this document that's sitting right here in front of me and it won't let me get in there. Look around on the page for any info, like, okay, what do I do? Click, no, that's not working. Any help, information? No, okay. Nothing on the page. Ask somebody nearby, hey, Stacy, do you know how to do this? Do you know how this works? Stacy doesn't know. Google it. Bing it, right? All right, let me search online if they're motivated enough. Usually people don't even get to this stage. But if they were, Google it, Binging it, or whatever, searching for it. Emailing or calling help desk. This usually doesn't even happen as well. Or it happens, but it happens like number one. Like, hey, how do I do this thing? Or can you do it for me, please? Unfortunately. Or give up completely and ask someone else to do it. All right? We don't want them to get there, but it happens so much, or a variety of different variations of this happens a lot. So, here's my thought to you. Take it for what it's worth. Sequence of training, and I put this in quote, should be maybe in double quotes, training end users. Communicating the business goals, weeks or months in advance at times of the new initiative. Clarifying how changes apply to their role specifically. Why does it make sense to you? Why are we doing this and how is it going to affect your job? And then training on software technology. So my experience has been, and I get called for this still to this day for many, many years, is that they say, oh, we want to train our users. Is this your experience as well, that this comes first? Yeah? Well, yeah, we want to train our users. We have this product, we have this platform, we have this new initiative, and we want to train them on SharePoint. Can you come in and do it? And of course, we give them exorbitant prices as to here's what it's going to cost you. They're like, okay, then negotiate, and then it happens. But honestly, this should not be the first step. This is the third step. Understanding the business goals as to, is SharePoint even the right answer? Okay, no offense, but should you go with Salesforce? Should you go with Box? Should you go with something else? Okay, you've decided SharePoint is the right answer. Great, as a company. Do people know how their roles are going to change with this thing? If you're going that route, or if you're going from maybe you already had SharePoint 2003 and now you're going to SharePoint 2013, how is it going to change for them? What is in it for them? If not, what is your process for communicating it? Usually there's no answer for this either. This is simple because this is more concrete, right? You put dumb people in the room like this and you say, all right, Asif, train. You talk, they will listen, and life will be good. Their heads will be full of that knowledge that we need them to have, and afterwards, all good. Right? No? Doesn't work that way? So if it does this work this way, for the end users, that means I have failed many times. Because I've tried and tried and tried, and I even put some articles about this too recently, opened up here's the example. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Here's an example that I posted out there. So there was a company in Chicago. Anyway, I'll tell you what they do. I don't want to say the name again. But they provide secondary education insurance. So for graduate college and regular colleges, they provide insurance for those colleges. They only have 30 people working for them, and they make $30 million a year. They have good money, good revenue, especially per person. They brought me in saying, hey, it's only 30 people, do a 2-day training. I did it. This was some years ago, actually. After the training, they said, Asif, can you sit in the office? We have a vacant office here. If you don't mind, of course, we'll pay you consulting fees and stuff by the hour. Sit here. If there's any questions remaining, you know where I'm going with this? If, in case there's any questions after this awesome training that you did, they'll come ask you, and there'll be some support for them. You know what happened those couple of days that I was sitting over there? I literally felt like crying. I'm like, oh my God, I did such a horrible job in this training, because the same thing that I was talking about in the training, they're asking the same exact stuff. How do I put our company pictures, picnic pictures in this picture library? This thing is sort of saying that I need to check out as mandatory. What does that mean exactly? I'm like, oh my God, this is the same person that I saw. I looked into this person's eye 2 days ago, and I said this exact same thing, like, oh. And that was just 2 days. Like, oh, frustrating. So what I realized that day was, it's not like they were not smart. It's not like I did a really bad job. At least I hope I didn't. But it was just that, it was too much information, too much at once. So they got the concept, they got the understanding of what it is, but they didn't get the exact steps of how do I. And I couldn't have given them all that stuff as to here's where the picture library is. If you don't have one, you create one. Here's where you go to upload things, and here's how you change the view to have it into a slide format and stuff like that, that you guys already know how to do, right? They didn't. It was their first time looking at SharePoint, and just didn't work. When they need training, they need to get training. And that's not, I don't even want to call it training. It's just-in-time support. Just-in-time learning is what we call it. That's what I and our company also focuses on. So anyway, here's a typical cost of training end users, right? Approximately $150, it might be different for you guys, but $150 per user, average 2-day training. This is what costs come out to be. 500 users is for $57,000. For 5,000 users is $575,000. And we're talking about real end users, okay? When companies see these kind of figures, they're like, whoa, that's just too much. But you know what? Over the years, they're spending this much and sometimes even more. Really, truly, quote unquote, training their end users. And still there's no adoption. So, a bold statement coming up. Literally, it's going to be in bold. This is what I believe. A thorough end users training on SharePoint is a waste of time. Their time and your time. Okay? And I've had this debate and discussions, I want to say, with many people from Microsoft or other SharePoint MVPs. I've been MVP for 8 years now, so I talk to a lot of these people. And I have not lost a debate just yet, so far. I'll talk with you as well, and I'll give you examples of why this thing is the case. Remember, a thorough end users training is what I'm talking about. Not end users, nothing at all. Like, no, you don't just let them go in the wild. There's got to be launch events. There's got to be other things, which actually I talk about right now. So, before I talk about that, there's some statistics here as well that you might want to see in the slide later. And I'm sure you'll agree with this. This is from Open Book Management Incorporated. Users, after 2 days of training, people remember 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, and 30% of what they see. I didn't see a percentage for when they're actually in it, but I'm sure it's a little bit higher. So what do you do? What do you do? Yeah.
Did you try on the sessions exercise, some exercise
getting the hands into it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just give them some time to try that.
Right,
Because
right.
nowadays helps.
That actually, you know what, that's actually a good point, and I need to find that percentage because that, I'm sure I can almost guarantee that it's going to go at least 10 or 20% more, where people retain that knowledge a lot more when they actually do it. But let me ask you this though. Can you honestly feel that you can actually train them on fundamentals at least, hands-on, if you have 1,000 people in your organization? Fundamentals being the document library stuff, the list stuff, the page stuff, and everything else.
Altogether in the same room.
So,
Probably not.
no, not in the same room. It's not going to happen. Even if it's 1,000 users. Well, how about over time? Depending on the time now, right? And how about your initiatives? Is your initiative that okay, we're going to launch SharePoint right now, or is it going to be 2 years from now when everybody's ready? There are many factors like that that come into play where you feel, yeah, it is possible, but by that time when they actually do it, we'll have moved on to the next version of SharePoint or something, you know? So here's some ideas, some thoughts for you. Definitely provide a kickoff intro training. Makes sense. Why we're doing this, what's your role, here's the initiative for the company. Not just for technology-wise, here's why we're doing it. Frequent awareness sessions also in form of lunch and learns. Now lunch and learns, of course, makes sense. Yeah, okay, whatever. You've heard it many times, right? But there's a twist to it. We've tried lunch and learns where we have the SharePoint guy or the SharePoint girl stand up like this, and if everybody's eating pizza or whatever on the table, and that person is talking, and it works. It's good, and they're showing stuff, they're talking about it. But it doesn't work as well as when we get a person from here, and they're the ones talking to their peers. Imagine you have just learned about the picture library, since we were talking about that before, right? And now you know how to do it. And you did it because you put all the picnic pictures on the site. You just did it, you're excited about it, you're empowered, you feel, yeah, this is pretty awesome, I accomplished that. When you come over here and you talk about it, and it doesn't have to be up here, it could just be sitting down and talking at the table, that impact to other users who see you as one of them has a much, much, much bigger impact than a person who would think, oh, I'm the SharePoint god, I can tell you what it is. So here, listen very carefully, here's what you do. That doesn't work as effectively unless you say it. So if somebody is empowered, if they have truly become evangelists because of that one thing that they do really well and it helped them in their job or helped them some way, that goes a long way. So that's my recommendation at least. Also providing on-demand quick help. Yes, we also have a product for quick help, as I told you about earlier, but I'm not saying only our product. It could be anything where they have the help in form of whatever you think is right. Tip sheets, tutorials, documents, maybe a laminated sheet of things or something, or maybe support, so there's a person sitting over there that they can actually always talk to for the first month or for the first couple of weeks. Something where when they need help, they get help. Scenarios that have happened with us was when people needed help, there was no help available. Many people, or actually most people, did not complain. They just didn't use it. Later in the next meeting, we're like, okay, so what has happened so far, and here's that, and then we found out that they're just not using it. Okay, but they're not complaining either. There was no like, hey, there was no white flags. You know, they just went back to doing what they were doing before, and that's trouble. Because once you've given up on something, it's difficult to go back to that and then having them use that again. SharePoint has become a bad word by that time. Providing a reference knowledge portal, online or on-premises. So we're people who have become evangelists in your organization or in your team. Where do they go next? Okay, I understand the end user stuff, library, list, and all that stuff. What about next? I want to understand about workflows. I want to understand about forms. I want to make dashboards and things. And I've learned, I went to Andrew's session at this special conference, whatever, and they talked about this. How do I do that? Show me. That's where you can have a reference portal with lots of knowledge available for those people. Because that excitement, and when they actually make something, goes a long way, long way. Okay, implementing quick wins. So I have a story to share with you on this as well. And this is also something that's doesn't make sense sometimes. But identifying the true pain points and then focusing on them sounds very easy. And I'll tell you a story of how easy it was and how it worked out. So there's an article about that too that I put out there recently. There was this secretary in Tennessee. You guys know where Tennessee is, United States, right? Right in the middle. So, well, actually not right in the middle, down. Anyway, so this lady, we went to that organization and we were doing consulting for them, but it was very much process-based understanding of how is the process currently being followed, what can we do better. They already had SharePoint Server licensing, SharePoint Server Enterprise. So they already had the platform. We were just there to make things better. Her job was, in the morning, every morning, she would get on Excel, make reports, generate charts, everything, all the macros, everything was set up already. After they were generated, she would click on print. It would come out in the printer behind her. She would actually manually take the actual piece of paper, go to the next building. They had 2 buildings. It was a government organization. And in that next building, the lady would give the paper to the other person. I'm sorry. It was not a person. It was actually the executives were sitting in that building. Okay? She would give it to them, have a chat with them, and then come back to her building. The whole process took about an hour and a half. I'm sure as I was saying it, you're like, oh my God, I see so many different solutions that I can make for that, right? So we rattled off things like, oh, well, here, very easy. Excel services is already out. We'll use Excel services, and in there, she can make the solution right there. Okay, we'll put all the, the placeholders in there where she can dump the data, automatically will generate pivot tables, it'll make some charts and stuff like that. There'll be a one-click publishing. When the publishing happens, it goes into a library, either a report library or maybe a dashboard library for all the different dashboards. And in there, we'll set up some alerts for the executives so they don't have to wait for the result. The alerts will be there. They'll get the alert through email. They'll click on the alert. It will go directly to the portal. They'll see the dashboard. Everything will take minutes. Okay, she won't have to walk anywhere. The executives will be happy. She'll be happy. Life will be good, right? Right? No, we were so wrong. Oh my God, we were wrong. So here's what happened. First, we talked to the secretary, right? And she mentioned, no, this process is not broken. I like this process. It makes sense. Executives are happy. I'm doing this thing right. What am I doing wrong? Offensive, like, hey, what's getting defensive like that? At that time, we're thinking, all right, well, job security, right? She's saying, well, this is an hour and a half of my job every day. Why would I want to change it? She was a little bit older lady as well, so she didn't want to change too much. Fine. So then we said, let's talk to the executives and just tell them, here's what's going on, here's what we can do, because I'm sure there'll be a different picture. No. They understood, because they've been to conferences, they say, okay, like you can make dashboards and reports, and they didn't argue that point. They said, yes, absolutely, you should do that, but you should do it for other processes, not this process. This is a daily process we've been following for many years, and it's working perfectly fine. It's a daily report, the sheet that we get, we have copies of it, we see it, we move on. We don't need any more data than what you get. That's number one. Okay, fine. Number two was the engineers, the product managers, everybody who were the real core of the team were sitting in the building, the same building where the secretary was sitting. So you know what happened every day? She would walk there, she would chat with them, she would give them a pulse of the organization. Here's what's going on, here's the issues, here's the good stuff, here's what people are feeling. Oh, and that gave them such an awesome picture of what's going on, good or bad, that they just could not live without anymore. They're like, this process is perfect. We don't want to lose the pulse of our organization because everything is automated. Also, doesn't make any sense to us. So if we had built that solution, nobody would have come to it. That would have been a solution that would have been completely unadopted in the organization. At least that's what we thought. So we said, all right, thank God we got that. We'll do everything else. We still made portals and dashboards and everything else, but for other processes, not to replace this particular process. We thought it was a pain point. It was not a pain point. If you try to solve a pain point that doesn't exist, guess what you're doing? You're creating work for yourself, okay? And that work, unfortunately, will not get utilized. Anyway, so building powerful and easy to maintain solutions is a big thing. I gave you an example of a solution. We made so many of these kind of solutions, and they're so easy now to make, just taking workflows, taking info path, and taking all different kind of things and putting it together, throwing it together. And I'll give you some examples of that. Actually, I have one more slide before that. But before you even go into solutions, the questions to ask yourself is there a true user's need? What do our users really need? What does our business really need? What's the return on investment long-term for these solutions we're making? Long-term. Who's going to maintain it? I'm missing it at the end. These are the correct questions. These are the questions that usually get asked. Incorrect questions. What can SharePoint do? How much is the initial cost of the solution for a developer to make this happen? I don't believe these are right questions. SharePoint can do everything. And as you know, NDA, don't tell anybody, it will make coffee in the next version as well. So everything, okay, done. That doesn't mean you use it for everything. I'll give you some specific examples. Anybody use SharePoint for enterprise surveys? Enterprise surveys for the whole organization? That's awesome if you guys are. You know who one company that does not use SharePoint for enterprise surveys? Microsoft. So that's just one thing. There's other things like that also, where the discussion boards. Now there's Yammer, right? So there's a lot of that discussion happening. So, I mean, I'm just telling you the truth as to this is what's happening. It does all these things, and don't get me wrong. The survey functionality, the branching now that they've introduced in a couple of versions ago, it's good stuff, but it's good for a specific reason. Microsoft is using SurveyMonkey a lot of times to do their surveys, okay, internally and externally. There's a reason for that. It's just much more powerful, much more enterprise focused. We don't have to use it for everything, okay? Just because it can do everything. Use it for specific things. Maybe it's a small team need, not an enterprise need. Then you use it for that. Anyway, having said that, SharePoint can and does already provide lots of business solutions like these: employee training, business performance reporting, help desk portal, vacation scheduling system, onboarding processes. And honestly, we built all of these things without code many times over in our organization for companies, okay? And of course, when you get code involved, then you can do a lot more after that as well. So what I want to do is show you some examples of no-code functionality. If you're wondering why does this fit into this picture, here's why. I don't have a good example here, but you know, if you had made something by hand using clay or something like that, and then you give that to somebody, there's your pride, right? That I made this thing. You will use it, you'll get others to use it. If somebody's already made and you purchase it, it just doesn't feel as like, oh my God, this is amazing. That's just generally true as human nature. A lot of these things, many people inside code or no code, they can make it themselves. It doesn't have to be a special consultant coming from outside, not Accenture or whatever, to make that happen. Just, people can make it. When somebody makes it, they get empowered to make a picture library-driven solution even. People are going to use it. They're going to use it. They'll spread it will spread like wildfire. Everybody's going to start using it. That has happened. So, I want to show you some examples, and all these are just examples that we can, of course, dig into any of the. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going further than I should right now. First, here's a few things that should be obvious. Why go no code? For many things, it's quick learning curve. You can delegate the responsibility very easily to give to somebody. It's easier ongoing management of solution. One thing I don't have here is change management. You know, when you make a solution with SharePoint Designer as compared to Visual Studio for a workflow, you know how difficult it is to change a SharePoint Designer and change the loops and change the dictionary variable and calling web services? Once you get used to it, it's not that difficult. And recompiling that thing. If you do the same thing in Visual Studio, it takes a lot longer. Processes are changing very, very quickly these days. You want to try to do many, many things with no code as much as possible. You want to also show a few people a few things. Maybe it's not as complicated as a workflow. Maybe it's an Excel service-based solution where you say, okay, here's where you're going to put the data, here's what you're going to do to happen, and that's your solution. And they've made it now. Excel Web Access Web part. Put that out there, and here's your dashboard pie chart that appears every day because you changed it. You did it, Sam. Okay, it's my solution. Awesome. You'll see it. So some examples of stuff that we have done for many, many years now. SharePoint Designer 2010. If you're using that, there's of course, the design view. Doesn't exist in 2013 anymore, sorry. But in there's a lot of good stuff you could do with conditional formatting and XPath rules and lots of good stuff which are not as complex. SharePoint Designer 2013, the workflow story is pretty powerful. What you can do in their stages and loops and calling web services, etc. For web apps, you can make web apps using Access. I don't know if you've done that already. I showed that in my last session. Using Access to make web apps that launch directly into SharePoint, and the back end for that is a scalable SQL database. So a lot of good stuff you could do there. Once again, all these things require no code at all. Very simple to create. Of course, you still have to manage it and extend it. Self-service, powerful search-based solutions. I showed some of that in my last session also, of how you can make search solutions really quickly these days. And they get used quite a bit. Adoption does work in those things. Powerful no-code forms. Whether you like it or not, InfoPath is still here. Okay, I'm sure many of you actually like it. Hopefully that is still here, because InfoPath is still a good solution. until Microsoft decides to come up with a different solution, which is a separate story altogether. You can still make web forms, library forms, list forms, workflow forms using InfoPath. Dynamic dashboards, you can use SQL Server for making that. You can use Excel for making it. You can use Dashboard Designer tool to make it. All these things, well, most of these things require no code. More dashboards, you can use Performance Point for that as well, and KPIs, key performance indicators, and even more dashboards with SQL Server, Power Pivot in this case. There's lots of opportunities. And then, of course, one of the things that we hear a lot is project management. Either we have Project Server or we don't have Project Server. We only have Project 2013, but we want to do some project management in our team sites, in our workspaces, and show us what you can do. And this also gets used because now you're tracking your processes, having people come in also and put in their hours and resources and everything else in SharePoint. All of those scenarios, believe it or not, all of them little by little help adoption. They get in there more and more for specific things. There's no other way of doing it. I have to do it here. Okay, let me get into it. Then they discover other things. Location mapping. That's another thing you can use with a geolocation column, which is already present in SharePoint. What I've done, by the way, I'm pretty sure is in these slides. Let me see. This one okay. So some of them I did not. I'm pretty sure in some of these slides, I put in a note at the bottom, which has a link to an actual demo of how these things work in actuality. So if you wanted to just see it, you could. There's also this link, which has a lot of sample videos that you can watch and see some of these things in action. And also getting a trial of Office 365, 30-day trial, will help you do some of these things online quickly to see for yourself if it's going to help your users or not. So check that out. Now, next thing, empowering the help desk. Oh man, I'm running out of time pretty quickly. Now the technology help desk, I'm going to go through this one quickly over here. It could be, for a big company, a big help desk. Not SharePoint focused, everything focused. Or it could just be, for smaller companies, just one person. Or it could be no help desk at all. You're the person, because you developed it, or you did something with it, you brought it in, so you're the person now. You're the SharePoint guy and SharePoint gal supporting it. So, what do you need? If you don't know what you need, or if you have an established help desk who doesn't know what they need, how are they going to help users when they come to them? Well, this is a statistic that I found on the web. This is not mine. One full-time support person every 5,000 people, assuming they generate about 25 to 30 problem tickets per week. That's what's needed in general, they're saying, for smaller to bigger tickets. So that person, how are you going to provide help to that person, that help desk person, if it's you or somebody else? Well, you need to have that user be trained, obviously. They have to have a knowledge base where they can tap into, a wiki page or wiki portal, video tutorials or online sources, something like that, where they can go for help. Or another thing that works nicely, I've seen many companies do this, is bucket of hours by some SharePoint experts in a company. So when this person gets completely frazzled as to what, I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore. I don't know if we're supposed to go to BI or not, because I know there's Power BI coming, and then there's this BI. I don't know if I should take this direction or that direction or no direction. That's where you have these bucket of hours, so you talk to a person or you talk to 5 people or whatever, using hour at a time, and that helps quite a bit. This is where you avoid going down a route that you realize later Microsoft's not on support anymore, because it was public knowledge to other people, but you didn't know about it. And lastly, so this is going a little bit faster over here, talking about the help desk empowerment. Last thing, keeping it fresh. You have to keep it fresh. It cannot be static HTML pages that we used to have before. I'm sure you remember some sites that you've gone to once or twice and see, oh, this is really good content. And then you went again, like, oh, it's the same content. And you went again, oh, it's the same content. Like, okay, I'm not going to go there again. It's the same thing every time I go there. So having a culture change really where content is different, and also empowering people, this is a little bit debatable, but having owners on each page. You're saying, yes, yes, yes. Public shame sometimes, like, it's broken. That's a person, talk to them. Or it's working really good, give them kudos. This is the person who's actually managing. Or I have a question about this page, we're talking about our stock options. Go to Sarah, she'll know because her picture is right on the page. Really, really helps. Oops, excuse me. So having owner info on every page, very, very helpful. Food-related events, that also usually helps quite a bit. So taking an event, because there's always something going on, right? There's Mother's Day, Father's Day, there's October Fest, and there's Halloween and something. Well, Oktoberfest could be SharePointtoberfest. Collaboration for Halloween. Boo, scared you. Thanksgiving, SharePoint giving. Let's help each other.
Yes.
I'm sorry, okay, you don't have Thanksgiving, that's right. It's more of a US slide here, but you can have your own Thanksgiving. You know? 30 for 30. Give us 30 minutes and we'll teach you 30 things instead of calling it lunch and learn. You know, something exciting. So these kind of things help. It kind of revitalizes things every time things start going down, and then you have enough events over the year, whatever the events you want to attach to, they help. Another thing, mini launch events. So something happens and you know that you're taking out, okay, now, so there's more search functionality that we have introduced. But nobody knows about it, and we're really excited about it. We know they can search about this thing much easier. Having a mini relaunch event. Here's what our current intranet looks like, or here's what our current search-based solution looks like. An old car. But a new one is coming. New and exciting, coming, releasing September 20, whatever, you know. And this is not a great example, but I'll give you a very good example of what Sony did actually, Sony Corporation. Hope I'm not giving any trade secrets away. They have Spider-Man. They own Spider-Man. You know that, right? They own Spider-Man. Anyway, so what they did was they put Spider-Man posters everywhere within the corporate office, and it's like holding a mug and it says SharePoint on there. Or it didn't say SharePoint, I'm sorry. It said their intranet name on there, which I don't want to give too much away, but their intranet. And that got people looking like, oh, what is that? Okay, and then it got them talking, and then, you know, virally it spread. And then they finally came to the actual orientation where they understood what this was all about. But all that stuff started happening. Promotion inside of the organization. Really, really helped. Useful widgets on a homepage. So this is very, very simple, but having weather, traffic, thought of the day, things like that directly on the page they visit most. So it could be my site, or it could be their team site homepage, or it could be something where you might look at this as like, this is just frivolous stuff, who cares? They care. Remember the cafeteria menu? They care. If they're going to go outside and check the weather before they leave the office, or before, check the traffic before they leave the office anyway, they have to go to 2 different sites right now. Well, they know that it's on my SharePoint site. It's right here. I can just go to this page, and automatically it's going to know my location. It's going to give me the weather. It's going to give me the traffic. Oh, I might even use it at home because I have VPN. Let me do that there. Maybe on my iPad or something, whatever. It works. It really, really works. These kind of things are small, but they're so, so helpful. Whew. Okay, so I got through all of it. Once again, these were all lots of copper bullets, nothing like one single silver bullet, but I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you very much for listening to me for an hour, and I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you, folks.